Assalamu alaikum. In today's lesson, we're going to learn how to write about pie charts as one of the types you might encounter in the writing task 1 of the academic IELTS. Let's watch. Okay, let's take this first exercise, which aims at teaching us some new expressions that you can use when you write about pie charts. Here we have some phrases, 1 in 3, nearly half, 3 out of 4, and so on. What you need to do is to classify these phrases into 4 groups. So you need to divide them into 4 groups based on the meaning. So you need to find the phrases that have a similar meaning and put them in the same group together. I'll give you some time to think about how you're going to do that, and then I'm going to show you the answers. To give you some help, if you look at 1 in 3, for example, so it has a very similar meaning to 1/3. So we're supposed to put 1 in 3 and 1/3 in the same group. And it goes like that, nearly half. It has a very similar meaning to close to 1/2. So you put nearly half and close to 1/2 in another group together. That's what you need to be doing. Okay, take some time to think about how you're going to divide the other phrases, and then I'm going to show you the answers. Okay, let's take a look at the answers. So in the first group, we have 26%, just over a quarter, about 1 in 4. All these 3 phrases, they mean the same thing, almost 26% or 1/4 or something like that. And then the second group, we have 33%, 1 in 3, 1/3, same meaning. 48%, nearly a half, almost half, just under 1/2, and close to 1/2. 75%, which means 3 out of 4. That was the first exercise. Now we move on to the second exercise. We have some adjective noun collocations, which we can use to describe proportions. What you need to do is to divide them according to the meaning. The first group indicates something that means very big. And then the second one, very big with numbers, with a number, like 85%, for example. Very small, and then very small with a number, like, for example, 12%. So take some time, think about how you're going to divide these phrases and put them in the right places. Okay, now I'm going to show you the answers. So for very big, you have the vast majority, the overwhelming majority. For very big with numbers, a massive 85%, a hefty 85%. For very small, you have a minor fraction, a marginal share. For very small with number, a mere 12%, a modest 12%. That was exercise 2. Now in this exercise, what you need to do is to replace the underlined parts with any of the expressions that you learned from the previous 2 exercises. So we have 23%, 9 out of 10, exactly 3/4, 34%, 10%, exactly 1/2, 64%, 92%. Replace them with any of the exercises that we learned in the, with any of the expressions that we learned in the previous 2 exercises. Take some time to think about how you're going to write them. Grab a pen and a piece of paper and write down your answers. Okay. So when it comes to 23%, we may say almost a quarter, close to 1/4, 1 out of 4. Like, for example, you can say it can be seen from the chart that 1 out of 4 students fail to finish their university degree. When it comes to 9 out of 10, we can say the overwhelming majority of engineering students, a massive 90% of engineering students were male. But by 2000, this figure had fallen to 75% instead of exactly 3/4, or 3 out of 4 students. See, in 1960, 34% would be 1/3. or you can say nearly 1/3 of science graduates went into the teaching profession. But in 1970, the figure was just 10%, a mere 10%, a modest 10%. Exactly one half, that would be 50% of the student population were members of the union in 2001. But 5 years later, the figure was 64%, almost 2/3. 92%, we can say a massive 92%, a hefty 92%, and so on. Okay, let's take some time to practice. Here we have pie charts. The pie charts below show units of electricity production by fuel source in Australia and France in 1980 and 2000. We're supposed to write about that. So we have Australia, 1980, 2000, France, 1980, 2000, and we have 5 different fuel sources: coal, the white part; oil, the black part; natural gas, the light gray part, this one here, and that one here, and this one, and that one; hydropower, represented with the stripes here, and here, and here, and here; nuclear power, nothing here and nothing in Australia, but you got 15 units here and 126 units in France. So you're going to start with an introduction, and in this introduction, you're going to paraphrase the question. And the question is: the pie charts below show units of electricity production by fuel source in Australia and France in 1980 and 2000. So you need to paraphrase this question. And then after that, you're supposed to write an overall paragraph. In this overall paragraph, you try to comment on the most prominent features in Australia and France. Like, for example, if you look at Australia, what are the most important fuel sources in Australia in 1980 and 2000? The same goes for France. What are the most important fuel sources in France in 1980 and 2000? So these most important fuel sources will be included in your overall paragraph. And then after that, you're going to write a body paragraph, one for Australia and one for France. That's it. And when you write this body paragraph for Australia, you're going to divide this body paragraph into 2 halves. One half for Australia in 1980, and the other half is for Australia in the year 2000. And the same goes for France. One half for 1980, one half for 2000. That's it. Let's take a look at this model answer. The charts compare the sources of electricity in Australia and France in the years 1980 and 2000. Overall, it's clear that by 2000, these two countries relied on different principal fuel sources. Australia relied on coal and France on nuclear power. We commented on the most important fuel sources in the year 2000 in Australia and France. That's okay. We kind of ignored 1980. We didn't really comment on 1980. That's acceptable because you cannot really find something prominent in 1980 in the two countries. But if you can, then you might comment on 1980 and 2000 in your overall paragraph. But you want to be careful so as not to make the overall paragraph too long. And then after that, we comment on Australia in this paragraph and France in that paragraph. In 1980, Australia used coal as the main electricity source, 50 units. And the remainder was produced from natural gas, hydropower, each producing 20 units, and oil, which produced only 10 units. That's it. So we covered all the sources. By 2000, coal had become the fuel for more than 75% of electricity produced, and only hydro continued to be another significant source, supplying approximately 20%. So you got 75% and 20%, that's 95%. This means we talked about 95% of the production. And that's why we ignored the remaining sources of electricity, because they only contributed 5%. In contrast, France used coal as a source for only 25 units of electricity in 1980, which was matched by natural gas. So we noticed that coal had the same number of natural gas, 25 and 25. The remaining 40 units were produced largely from oil and nuclear power, with hydro contributing only 5 units. However, by 2000, nuclear power, which was not used at all in Australia, had developed into the main source, producing almost 75% of electricity at 126 units, while coal and oil together produced only 50 units. Other sources were no longer significant. We did the same thing that we did in Australia here. When a source of electricity makes a very small contribution, we can just ignore it. And then we have this closing paragraph, which is optional, as we said before. It's worth noting that between these years, electricity production almost doubled, rising from 100 units to 170 in Australia and from 90 to 180 units in France. This piece of information is very suitable for a closing paragraph. That's it. Now it's time for you to practice. This is going to be your homework. You're supposed to write about this pie chart right here. Write it in the form of an essay and then send it to me, and I'm going to give you feedback. Thank you for your time. I hope this was useful. And if you have any questions, please let me know. Assalamu alaikum.